Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Jane Irrigation Training Series. I'm Richard Restuccia, Vice President of Water Management Solutions for Jane Irrigation, and today we really have an important segment for you. And we titled this segment, Why You Really Need a California Agricultural Irrigation Association. And yes, the focus is on CAIA, but it also is about associations in general a little bit as well, because certainly we've all had experience with associations. You know, I've been involved with the CAIA, I've been involved with the Irrigation Association, sat on the board, and certain times in your life, you are a giver to an association, sometimes you're a taker. And that's okay. This is part of why these associations exist, right? But what I think is interesting is sometimes we fully don't understand all the benefits we receive or can get from an organization. And sometimes the more we get involved with them, the more we see this. So CAIA is a great association in California that I'll tell you the reason why I wanted to have Jim and Paul on today is I think that it offers so much to their membership. I think that we all as ag people in California, as people that are involved in irrigation, get a lot from this. We get a lot of benefits from this organization that we may not have even realized. So I wanted to really spread that word with all of you today. So taking us on this journey, right, number one is Jim Lauria. He's a director for the CAIA. He's also the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Maisie. And the thing I really enjoy about Jim, and I've known Jim now for quite a few years, he is making water interesting, right? A lot of times we talk about water conservation, and you see people just glaze over when you start talking about it. But Jim's figured out that it's helping people understand about water makes a little bit more of a challenge, and you have to be a little bit more creative in doing that. And Jim's really found a way through his podcast, through his blogs, through his participation on LinkedIn. It's been just great. He's even got a book out about water. And so we're really fortunate to have Jim here today. We also have Paul McFadden. Yeah, you bet. So we also have Paul McFadden today, who's a past president of CAIA. He's got 20 years experience, over 20 years experience with CAIA. And as Jim said the other day, oftentimes Paul was the real leader who really pushed the organization to be better, to be the great organization it is today. And so we're getting a lot of history, and we get a lot of information out of Paul, thanks to his dedication to the California Agricultural Irrigation Association. We really appreciate that, and appreciate both of you coming on now. A discussion about irrigation in California right now wouldn't do justice if we didn't start talking about this historic drought that we're in. And Paul, I wanted to ask you, you've seen this for a lot of years now. What do you make of the historic drought conditions right now, and what's it looking like?
Well, we've seen it coming for some time, Richard. Thank you for that very generous introduction to. You know, you're only as good as the people around you, right? So I've been fortunate to be around some great folks, like guys like Jim and others, Jane Townsend, who have really made this organization what it is today. So thank you. Getting back to the drought, it's a situation where we've seen it coming. It's year over year compounding. Driven by an overdrafting of our groundwater situation in the Central Valley, but also lack of snowpack, which affects everything that we're doing in California and the 17 western states. This is a real difficult one because it affects everything all at once. The Colorado River watershed, the Lake Mead that's been in the news, we've seen that, the lack of water in Lake Mead. They're talking about curtailing water deliveries to the Central Arizona project. You know, there's the State Water Board came out here 2 weeks ago and said they're going to curtail water deliveries to agriculture out of the Russian River watershed. So pretty serious stuff if you can, because that's including Healdsburg and you know, there's some nice wineries and such and some farming up there that unless they have groundwater, it's going to be rough. And then you couple that with the fact that the infrastructure that we have to move water around the state is in dire need of repairs. For example, the Bryant Kern Canal has diminished their capacity to move water by 60% because of the area, 12-mile section where that canal is actually sunk because of subsidence and groundwater pumping, limiting the capacity. So even if we had water, we couldn't move it around efficiently as we could. And that's true with the California Aqueduct and other major water arteries around the state. So it's a very serious situation.
You know, it's interesting, when I think about drought, I think about a exception, right? This is a one-off. This happened this year, or it happened for 2 years. But I really think the drought we're experiencing right now really goes back to like 2006. I mean, we have a couple years in which we didn't have a drought, but it was very short-lived. One of them was less than 12 months. And so, you know, is this really the aridification of the West or California? Jim, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you know, we're the food basket of a lot of areas throughout the world. And if you look at what we produce, we've got really good soils, but you need water to produce this the foods and fiber that we're producing. And so I don't know if it's going to get any better. I mean, Paul said it, we need infrastructure. And a lot of times people think of water infrastructure as the pipes and sewer mains that run under cities, big cities. But we're talking about rural infrastructure, rural water districts that provide irrigation water. We need to think in terms of that type of infrastructure for the future of our food sources and fiber sources.
I think if I might, Richard, the Western Growers Association, which is a group that's been around since 1926, about 3,000 farmers in the Western US, primarily California, Arizona, I almost said California, but they produce about 50% of all the fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts consumed in the country, including leafy greens, and about 70% of everything consumed within the state of California and Arizona. So that's significant. And when you think about just our fresh food supply and those handful of growers, 3,000 growers that are really the ones at high risk because of a lack of water and now labor.
Yeah, and great point, Paul, and the impact that's felt not just in California, but all over the United States. And the world really too, right? Because we're providing a lot of our ag is going worldwide right now too. So it does impact everybody. So this might be a great segue. You know, at first I was going to ask you, Jim, about what CAI does for members and growers. But since we are talking about water conservation, well, let's just start there. Yeah, let's just start with what it does for members and growers with kind of touching on this water conservation message.
Sure. So a lot of things we do, we promote water and soil conservation through good irrigation practices. And one of the things that we adopted, and give a lot of credit to Dr. Charles Burt of Cal Poly, he came up with this Irrigation Consumer Bill of Rights. I know that Corey Broad, he did a series of webinars on exactly this, that you really need to look at irrigation, the way it's designed, the way it's installed. There should be a set of practices that's important for everybody to follow, just not that you know, do it willy-nilly and there's no planning around it. So I think that's an important thing that the CAIA brings into account with the groups of people that were involved, the irrigation dealers, the irrigation designers, the manufacturers of the irrigation, the drip tape, the injection systems, the pumps, all that. All the things necessary to design a good system. We promote education, and we want the next generation of people coming up We're very active with Fresno State, with Cal Poly, UC Davis, some of the smaller community colleges. And we also offer scholarships, and we're proud of that scholarship program that we've developed at the CAIA. And then again, the idea that really you need to design irrigation systems in an ethical way so that people can understand the importance of how you should do the work around irrigating different agricultural systems.
Yeah, I should just add to that, Jim, that we're a group that's been around roughly 20 years. We're made up of manufacturers, dealers, educators, and so for students. We're about 80 companies, member companies that are active in the industry. And again, like you said earlier, Richard, we're really trying to give back. And as Jim mentioned, give scholarships to kids students who want or are passionate about irrigation. We've given away literally hundreds of scholarships over the last 20 years to students. And I think we as a group are very proud of that fact.
Yeah, and I'm a fairly newcomer. I joined the organization when I joined Maisie about 6 years ago. And I remember the first meeting. I remember meeting Paul at a meeting up in Sacramento, and I was very impressed with the presentations that were given, but the way they welcomed me. I said, I really need to be more involved with this organization. And so as we all know, it's about giving back, and you give back. And I've always found that by giving back, you get more than you even think you could even, return.
Yeah, that's.
If I could, I'm sorry, Richard, if I could just add real quick to that. For us, it's about educating, keeping folks abreast of what's happening on the legislative front, both at the state and federal level. That's very important. People want to know that, especially in now with the drought and some of the funding that's out there for our members to take advantage of to build better systems. But it's also bringing in industry leaders. We've had the Secretary of Food and Ag for the state of California, two of them actually have come and asked to speak at our group. We've had large farming owners of large farming operations. We're inclusive in the fact that all forms of irrigation. We have pivot companies that are involved, Renke and Valmont. We had a member of our board of directors that was from Valmont. So, the sprinkler group, Buckner's and Rainbird are very active. So it's not just drip and micro. It's we try to really reach out and say, hey, the drip micro may not be the best solution for everything as same for pivots or sprinklers or whatever it might be. Here's a way that we can bring everybody together and say, okay, let's figure this out together and make it work for everyone. So that's just a little bit of an insight on who we are and how we do things.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul, and I'm glad you bring that up because I'm hard pressed to find any other industry where somebody says, well, you use a lot of X, so just stop doing it. Yeah. Right, but oftentimes in ag or in landscape, we might hear, hey, that uses a lot of water, so stop growing it. And when I think about all the great solutions there are, whether it's using technology or other ways to manage the water to manage the crop, I'm always shocked to hear people say stop doing it. But water is a really complex issue. And I'm really glad that you guys get the educators, the people who really know, to try to help educate our legislators. And that's a big deal because, we all spend our days, our lives are involved in water, and oftentimes we don't know the right answer or it's not exactly clear. So having people that educate lawmakers who spend a very small percentage of their time on this is really important. So
I think one of the greatest milestones for me during this tenure, my involvement was when Governor Brown reached out to us and asked for someone from our organization to come and represent Irrigation. He was putting a task force together, and my good friend Ingi Bisconer was able to go up and participate. We followed up. We spent weeks and weeks with Secretary Karen Ross and helped them kind of formulate some plans on how more efficient irrigation could be used, and so it was nice that we as an organization had achieved that kind of the level of respect.
So thanks, Paul. So Jim, we heard from Paul that there's 85 companies involved in the CAIA. Is it just for companies, or who should join? Who is the membership? What should the membership look like?
So we have a list of the type of people that should belong to the organization, besides the designers and the dealers and the manufacturers of irrigation equipment, pump dealers, water agencies, manufacturers reps that work around this, irrigation students, government people. And then we have some really good collaboration with other organizations like the California Water Coalition, the Family Farm Alliance, our good friend Dan Keppen, the Irrigation Association. They're usually at most of our meetings. And then what we've done just recently is we started reaching out to other Western agricultural irrigation associations, because they're facing the same problems as we are. And so we want to grab together this one voice and talk about the issues we're all facing, and maybe impress upon the legislators and the other people that make a difference on the importance of water and importance of water for irrigation, especially as it pertains to agricultural crops.
Yeah, so maybe Paul, you could help us out here, because I remember, when I first got in this industry many years ago, longer than I'd like to remember, but glad I'm here. But why would I join one agency over another? What's the CAIA do that's different than the Farm Water Coalition? If I'm sitting on the fence, why would I go one direction or another? Or maybe I should be involved in all of them. I don't know.
Well, I think we are a unique group that kind of brings the best of a lot of different organizations. So being primarily manufacturers and dealers, we're looking at it from a little different perspective than truly just a legislative perspective. And so we pull in groups like the Western Ag and Conservation Coalition, a group of that CAIA has been a part of for many years now, that has other members like Audubon and Drought Unlimited and Environmental Defense Fund and groups like that that are trying to work together to find some common ground to help steer legislation that benefits not only farmers but the environment. So I think we as a group are unique in the sense that we're trying to kind of raise the bar with members so that they're more informed on things that affect them directly, their businesses and their customers and their families. So, it's a very thin organization, obviously, and that's we want to try to keep it that way so that we can have more effect on those that we serve.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that makes us a little bit different is we've got a lot of manufacturers and a lot of design people, so a lot of engineers, right? And so we're trying to look at the technical trends that are happening in the industry to share so that we can understand what's happening in irrigation from that side of the business. And Paul and some of the people on the team have done a great job of bringing in technical presenters over the course of the time that I've been involved to really help everybody understand, okay, this is where things are going. This is what's happening with plastics recycling. This is what's happening with some of the ways we're conserving water on a technical basis. So I think that's also another part of what we offer that's a little different than some of the other organizations we've got here on the screen.
Yeah. Part of our fall meeting is just dedicated to innovation, technology, and education. So we have a number of speakers that come and address those things that are maybe not even ready to go to market, but they're new and innovative, and gets those creative juices flowing amongst our membership.
And then another thing that's helps us, that's very powerful, is the fact that, and people, Jane Townsend's our executive director, and people think she works for CAIA, but in actuality, she works for Ag Association Management Services, which has about 35 other ag associations that they manage. And it gives us a bigger voice, and it allows us to be out there in front of more people and gain some opportunities we wouldn't have if we were a lone voice out there. So, well, we like to give a shout out to Jane. She's done a great job over the years, really managing the group. But, it's also her and her organization up in Sacramento that gives us some of this opportunity. Every year I look forward to being invited. Last year, obviously, it was a different situation. But every year I look forward to being invited up to a dinner that they host with a bunch of the other ag associations that they manage. And it gives me a chance to kind of interact with people I normally wouldn't interact with.
I think Jane does a great job of managing the me and the rest of the board of directors. I think that's the biggest feather in her cap.
Well, that's the biggest problem she has, I think.
No easy task there.
We couldn't do it without her. Literally, we could not do this without her. She's incredible.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing that we do see, right, is there's certainly a power in the collaboration, and the ag community is huge and strong. We do have one question coming in from one of our viewers, and I think this applies, right? Because we do spend, or CAIA, you spend time talking to legislators about licensing and water issues. And this person's asking, in Texas, you need a license to work irrigation. We really don't have that situation in California. Does CAI talk about this at all? Do you guys have opinions on this at all, and why this would be happening or why it isn't?
If I can take a crack at it, Jim, I think
Sure.
we see the licensing more on the turf side, not so much on the ag side. I think ag designers, if you don't design systems well, you're not going to be around very long. And so it kind of is a self-selection feature. So I have not heard of talk about licensing ag irrigation dealers or designers. There's a certification program through the IA that we support. Many of our members are certified irrigation designers, and so we're at one point we were technical service providers for the NRCS. Each of the districts had the option to pull up members of our team, our organization, that were certified irrigation designers to help them augment some of their design work at the district level. So another benefit. Does that answer?
Yeah, Jim, any thoughts on this too?
No, I mean, I think we've talked about it quite a bit. And as you know, Richard, I'm involved in a lot of different aspects around water treatment. And so, from somebody that's working with consulting engineers around design of water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants, I mean, they're all professionally licensed by each state that they work in. And so in order to design a water treatment system, a drinking water treatment system, you have to have that professional engineering license. And for the irrigation people, where water is just as critical, it's surprising to me that it's never been a forced issue. And but we promote the idea that you really should follow this irrigation Bill of Rights and design systems in the right format, in the right way, and not just do it as a sideline.
Yeah, totally agree, especially the part about the irrigation Bill of Rights. That's what it's all about, is educating the consumers to ask these questions. And certainly we as an industry need to do a better job of helping consumers understand what certifications people should have And that alone will take care of a lot of the licensing issue, I think, right? So I want to get a license because I can market my company, I can market my services better than if I don't, and consumers are actually asking about it. So yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, and
So-
one of the things we're proud of, Richard, is our CAIA board of directors, and you can see from these photos that it's a diverse group of people, younger professionals, older professionals from across different parts of the state, different aspects of the sector, irrigation dealers, manufacturers, and so. We've got a good succession plan that I got to give a lot of credit to Paul for saying, look, we need some young professionals to follow up in our footsteps. And so, and then of course we talked about Jane, and then Brooke Palmer, who's an associate of Jane at the Ag Association Management Services Company that does the management of our organization. So this is important for us that we have people that are really dedicated and have a passion for what they do. You can see Frank Tovis, who's part of the Jane Group. He's been someone that just came on board, and we're really happy to have him with the team.
Yeah, with great. Curtis and Liz are both new to the board as well, and Jordan. So we've got a good, some real sharp guys that are really helping drive the organization and challenging kind of the status quo, so that we do come up with a better organization in the long run.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Frank, we've had on the show also, and what a great forward-thinking mind, and looking for ways to use technology to solve irrigation issues. So yeah, what a great board you have. Now, I know you guys, and we're talking about a conference or a meeting in September, right? And this is new, not for CAIA, but new to most of us for the last year and a few months. What's happening at this meeting? Do you expect good attendance considering the pandemic just happened? What do you guys think about all this?
Well, I think you're right, Richard. It's been a year since we had a meeting, and given the interest, it'll be packed. So we have our roundtable discussion where we just discuss legislative issues and what's happening both state, regional, and national levels. And these gentlemen are three of the leading experts in that area. They lead off, and then we have our innovation section where we're going to have folks talk about new ways to looking at apps and web pages and security with those. We have a closed loop recycling presentation. We've got a series, the imaging group that is looking at irrigation efficiency. They have over 700,000 acres under contract right now. So it's some really interesting technology that's proven. We've got a couple other little things up our sleeve. We've got our keynote address, I think, is going to be fascinating. We have some friends of mine that work in federal law enforcement, including FBI and Homeland Security, that are going to address cybersecurity for the water and ag sector. We're going to have a panel discussion, which will be interesting. And then we wrap it up with some social stuff. We're going to we've set up a hydroponic a tour of a hydroponic strawberry farm, and they're going to go do some wine tasting and then do some networking with members of the group, and in a beautiful spot. So it's going to be nice to get back together and see old friends and new friends.
Yeah, we got quite a nice barbecue every year where we get a lot of good networking. As Paul said, it's 2 days, and it's quite a nice time in a beautiful spot. Typically at that time of year in September, you can stand on the deck and watch the whales breach. And so doesn't get better than that, watching the sunset, talking to some people about trends in the irrigation industry.
The other thing I might add, Richard, is that we like to bring the scholarship recipients. Is we typically have 8 or 10. We bring them to the reception so that they can meet some of these potential employers and see how our industry operates and kind of fold them into that network as well. So some of them are very popular, as you can imagine, by some of these companies looking for engineers and designers.
Yeah, it looks like a fabulous agenda here. If as a member, what I look for in an association, I want to know what they're doing as far as legislatively and laws. You guys are touching on that. What's happening in the market, right? How should I be changing and adjusting what I'm doing? So I'm seeing that too. I love the technical tours, seeing how other people do it in real time. That's an opportunity most people don't get to see. So, and then of course the networking, which is always so valuable. So. Wow, this looks great. Pismo Beach, California, my old hometown. And that's, what's the date?
It's September 15th through 17th.
Yeah, well, that's great. I know you're going to get a big contingency from Jane there as well. I know everybody's talking about it at Jane already. So Jim and Paul, if people have follow-up questions after we conclude here, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach me at jlauria@mazy.net. If you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, please reach out to me there. And either way, we can get you the registration form. You can get the registration form on the CAIA website if you'd like to join us at the Pismo Beach meeting. So please, we really welcome new guests, new members, new participants. We think it's well worth your time and effort.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the time and effort to give us an opportunity to discuss our group and share, a few of the things we're very passionate about. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Richard. Appreciate it.
You bet. And I mean, it's so generous of you guys to provide your contact information for additional questions. I know everybody really appreciates that. And gosh, I'm pretty sure last time I checked, everything you're doing for CAIA is volunteer. And certainly we all benefit from that. So so thank you for your generous donations of your time and energy, your most valuable asset that you're helping with. So thank you guys very much. Thanks all of you for listening today and watching. Remember, you can see all our trainings at the janesusa.com website /trainings. We're also on wherever you're listening to your favorite podcasts now, Spotify, Google, Apple. We're on all of those as well. And it's really interesting and fun to see all the participation and all the downloads we're getting there. Apparently people do like educating themselves and they like to do it, whether they're driving, running, walking, whatever they're doing. It's nice to see there. Friday, we're going to be back for a live webinar again. We're going to be talking about water management services from Jane and what the team has experienced with the growers in California, especially considering the drought and high temperatures. And then next week, you guys mentioned Frank Tove as one of the board members. He's going to be talking about irrigating strawberries in Central California. So we hope everybody will join us for that. So Paul, Jim, again, thank you guys so much for taking us on this tour. We really appreciate it. And everyone, don't be shy. Reach out to these guys if you have questions. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys all on Friday.
Thank you.
Take care.